the Democrats win the House back?
No. When the Democrats win the House back, then we will.
So how does the next Democratic Speaker of the House deal with Donald Trump? What would be your advice?
Be yourself. Just do your own thing. Just be yourself. Hakeem Jeffries is ready.
Yeah, ready. Ready for what? We don't know. I think we do know. They've told us impeachment every other hour. That's what's coming. Well, maybe if you lose control of the House. It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant this Monday before New Year's Eve. I'll be here through New Year's Eve, and then to kick off the year, Chris returns a week from today. And he will be loaded for bear, I guarantee you. So much on the plate. Nancy Pelosi made an appearance on ABC News this weekend. Did you watch any of the Sunday talk shows this past weekend? It seems like they all kind of phoned it in, which really surprised me. I watched Meet the Press, and it was a puff piece, a giant puff piece on Hoda Kotb. Not to take anything away from Hoda Kotb. She's had quite a successful career, and she faced what many of us have faced when you're out trying to get a job, rejection. But did we have to make it like an episode of Oprah? Oh, 27 times I was rejected, and when that man finally said, "I like what I see here," I cried. Okay, we get it, but Meet the Press is not about meeting the people who are in the press. Well, I guess it is a little bit. But usually we have governmental figures showing up on Meet the Press and over on ABC News this week. And Jonathan Karl is sitting down with Nancy Pelosi. That was a little snippet from the Pelosi interview, which I found interesting, fascinating, because, as I said, Pelosi, she often has trouble putting a full sentence together. She stutter steps several times. And for all the time the left is saying that President Trump is having mental issues, nobody ever looks at Nancy Pelosi and goes, hold on a second. She did fall down the stairs last year. Was it last winter? I think it was. When it was the first round of the stair diving competition in Europe last week, and she had a serious injury. She seems to have recovered fairly well from it. Good for her. She does get great health care. But Nancy Pelosi talking about impeachments of President Trump. We know Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats are hell-bent on doing everything they can to stop whatever President Trump hopes to get accomplished in the remaining 3 years of his second term. And that's why the next year is obviously very important, as well as if the GOP could hang on to the House, you won't have an obstructionist Congress working to sidetrack everything he does. You won't have a lame duck president, but that's what the Democrats want. They want a lame duck, and then they also want to impeach him every other hour, guarantee you. But Pelosi talking about the previous impeachments of Donald Trump, and guess who she blamed? Go ahead, guess. Okay, you're right.
I'm not, in terms of impeachment, unless you have I've said to people, the one person who was responsible for the impeachments of Donald Trump is Donald Trump.
So she's blaming Trump for being impeached. You think Donald Trump would say, yeah, sure, I want you to impeach me? No.
It's not something you decide to do. It's what violation of the Constitution he engages in. So that's not something you say, oh, we're going to impeach him. Well, but you can have the power of subpoena to get information from these agencies of government who are not supplying any information.
So Pelosi, obviously, still controlling the Democrat caucus. She still has her arms raised, even though they'll tell you it's Hakeem Jeffries. No, that's not true. That is not true. Jeffries is doing exactly what Nancy Pelosi tells her to do. Absolutely. More from Nancy Pelosi talking about January 6th, because this I found to be very interesting.
Well, it was clear that the President of the United States had incited an insurrection. And we begged him to send the National Guard. typical of him. He never represents the truth. He said, I was going to send it, but they didn't want it. Get out of here. Even Mitch McConnell was on the phone with us saying, get them here right away. Yeah. But they never sent them. This was one of the sad things. January 6th was really sad of itself.
There's more from this, but I want to go back to what we know happened ahead of January 6th, that there was an Oval Office meeting with President Trump and Kash Patel. And there were papers that the president signed authorizing thousands of National Guard troops to be deployed to support the Capitol because they knew there were going to be a lot of people there. Nancy Pelosi rejected it. Mayor Bowser rejected it. The head of the Capitol Police rejected it. You can make up all the stories you want, Nancy Pelosi, but the reality is the paperwork exists. There's actual paperwork that is available for people to see. Kash Patel put it out. He put it online. So it's really kind of amazing to me that Pelosi is still carrying on about this. But she is spinning all kinds of tales as it relates to January 6th.
But the sorrow of it also springs from the fact that this president is trying to rewrite history, have a different narrative of what happened that day. And what I saw that day was these people coming in. They were going to have a bullet in my F-word head, and they were going to hang a noose for the Vice President of the United States. They had Confederate flags under Lincoln's dome, the dome that Lincoln built. They're in there. They're defecating on the floor. They're insulting the people.
Whoa. I'd have to double check that. Was there actual evacuation? I'm talking about digestive evacuation inside the Capitol by some of these people. That's a fact that has eluded me. We're going to have to check on that. And the only people I know that seem to have any kind of desecration were the Democrats who took place in the video recording of some kind of gay sex video in a set and hearing room, as I recall it. But Nancy, you go and create whatever reality you want for yourself. It's really kind of bizarre. Then there was the moment in this interview with Jonathan Karl where Nancy Pelosi wanted to just remind us how strong she is. For her age, octogenarian, very strong.
I didn't intend to go to speech to tear it up, but the first part of it, I tore a page because he was lying, and then the next page, and then the next page, and I thought it was a manifesto of lies all throughout, so I better just tear up the whole speech. Now, the speeches are on strong paper.
Strong
so you
paper.
Have to do it a few times to get it done. But I had no intention of doing it. I thought my staff was going to die.
So Nancy Pelosi wants us to believe that whole theatrical episode of her tearing up the speech, that it wasn't planned. No, she didn't have that planned. And that isn't she strong because she can rip those pages. It's laughable. The reality is when, again, we go right back to when you accuse somebody of doing something, rewriting history, you're the person who is in fact rewriting history, madam. You're the person who is in fact denying the reality of the documents that say that you were offered support, actual troops that could be there. But this kind of dovetails nicely with the study from Pew Research that shows liberal white women appear to be the one group of Americans who have higher rates of, well, let's just say mental problems, mental health issues. Liberals, and this is from a Pew Research study that came out recently that talks about the incidence of getting counseling from mental health professionals, because we all agree that if you look at Rosie O'Donnell, there's a whole lot of mental health issues right there. And Rosie talks about her therapist. But why is it that according to this study that just, it's from Zach Goldberg, political science researcher, who looked at, and there are crosstabs on this in ideology, race, gender, age, etc., that among the white liberal respondents, 56% of them have reported mental health diagnosis at some point in their life. 56%. More than half of them. And this is specifically the younger ones, 18 to 29. So that's a little disturbing. That may explain why we have so many of these crazy people with the purple hair and the nose rings running around the streets screaming about it. And Goldberg included himself in this gathering of analysts to look at all his information that showed the liberals, particularly young white women, are more likely to seek professional help and receive a diagnosis. And they say, oh, that's due to greater awareness. It doesn't deny the fact that they are struggling. Sorry, but that's the reality. It is the liberal white female who is suffering from mental illness in this country. Crazy. A couple of phones ringing, 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. We still have to get to the president talking about his meeting with Zelensky and what's going on going forward. But so many of you are joining us, we thought we'd check in. Steve is in Indiana. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah, I've got like an inside baseball question for you. It seems like every year now, the last 2 weeks of the year, everybody in media just disappears, go on vacation. I'm not talking just national, I'm talking local. I mean, on your local TV stations, on your local radio stations. I'm retired now, so I listen to talk radio, all day as I'm doing things around my place. But, every host that I usually listen to for the last 2 weeks of the year now, for the past few years, they're on vacation.
Yeah.
Chris, Bongino, everybody used to do it. The guys that used to be on, the guys that are on now. Everybody leaves for 2 weeks at the end of the year. And I've never seen that in any other industry, that everybody leaves.
I think I can explain it because I've been in and around the business for 4 decades. And there was a time, Jerry, or Steve, there was a time when media lived and died by what they called rating periods or ratings books, where they would send out diaries for people to fill out as to what they were listening to or watching. And there were certain weeks of the year that you were rated. And in the TV world, they call those sweeps. That's when you'd see all the special programming that was meant to get your attention. And now it's done differently. There's almost a constant monitoring of who's getting watched or who's getting listened to. But before that, those periods between basically the week before Christmas through the end of the year weren't counted. So everybody saved their days off so they could go away. And now the news doesn't stop, as we saw over the years. We see all kinds of stuff happening in the world of news, and it's just that those were the times, so everybody used to take those days off because they thought they didn't count. But in reality, the way media monitors itself now, we can pretty much tell you who's listening at any time. But the tradition of taking that time off continues. But you're right, this is good observation. Well done, Steve. Thanks for paying attention. But it also gives me work, so I'm happy to be here. But thank you. Let me grab one more. Jerry in Illinois. Hello, Jerry. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hello.
Hello, Jerry. You're with me.
Yes, I'm here.
And what's on your mind? Jerry?
Yeah, I had some ideas.
Okay.
We often see on the TV criminals that have been let go by judges. They've committed a crime. Next day, they go out and commit another crime, killing somebody or doing something. We often see the picture of that person on TV. I think we need to, along with that, I think we need to see the picture of the judges. You know?
I'd be all for that. My only concern for that is that would we put those judges' lives at risk? Because if you're telling people, hey, this is the one who let the criminal loose, I think we should find a way to be able to get those judges out, to have them tossed out. The case, you're probably thinking of the Minnesota judge who had a unanimous jury verdict against one of the fraudsters, stole $7.2 million in Medicaid funds, and then the jury convicted the criminal unanimously. The judge tossed the conviction. So we need the ability to recall judges. I understand what you're saying. You want to shame them publicly, but the better move for me would be able to remove these people, to get them out of the system. Just a thought. I like the idea, but I think action is better than public shaming. Let's get them out. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant, checking on social media. So many of you checking in. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of that. I will get to Donald Trump and his comments after his meeting with Zelensky, but I don't have a lot of time here, so I thought I would talk to some of you on the phones. John is in Fairfax, Virginia. Hello, John. Welcome.
Hey, Michael. How you doing? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I forgot to say Happy Kwanzaa, but I celebrate Toyotathon more than I celebrate Kwanzaa.
There you go. You're good to go right there. Hey, I just wanted to comment on your mental health stuff. I thought that was spot on about how, the liberal side is really, with the Trump derangement syndrome, just the hate and the spewing and everything. And I think it trickles down to the kids. I mean, you think of this Rob Reiner guy, and, even if he gets to wherever he goes after life, and even if everything he said was right and he got to get a thumbs up on everything he said, he's still going to be a miserable guy. And I think that just never ended. His hate, his rage, his just uncontrollable seething, I think, trickled down to his kids. And, I mean, look what his kid ended up doing to him. And I think a lot of kids are doing that. I'm not just saying that the parents, are a problem, or maybe these liberal parents.
Well,
but I think it's what they're exposed to.
You get it from your parents. And if we can quote the great philosopher Will Smith, hate in your heart will consume you too. Thank you, John. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant. We're counting down the end of 2025. Yeah, we'll get to the list. I was watching something before the show, and CNN was doing its top 10 countdown of the most important stories in the entertainment world leading, in 2025. The top 10 entertainment stories of 2025. And number one was the P. Diddy story. Really, that's the biggest bit of entertainment news. Boy, talk about a sucky year. Wow. We'll talk about some of the year-end stuff coming up around the corner. I've also been touching on the Minnesota fraud all day long during this show here, and one of the folks I follow on social media just sent me a note saying Minnesota's largest newspaper is the Minnesota Star-Tribune, and there is not a single mention of the fraud and what it is doing to the state. Not a single mention. There are 98 mayors and city officials who have written to federal authorities saying, for God's sakes, help us. Help us. All of our communities are going to be absolutely rocked because we're not going to have money because of all the grift here. It is truly frightening, and it's wrong. And hopefully something will be done. Kash Patel posting over the weekend that the FBI is surging assets to go after all the fraud, and hopefully we'll start seeing some arrests. I really want to see arrests and convictions and the return of the money. Look at, we got how much money back from Bernie Madoff after all of that. There were billions that were actually recovered. I hope we can do that. We'll see. We'll keep eyes on that. It's going to continue. But there is big news in other places. President Trump sitting down with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. And today, President Trump sitting down with Benjamin Netanyahu, and we'll talk about what came out of that meeting with the Israeli leader and how it relates to Iran and Iran's threats against the United States, which happen every day. But yesterday was the big meeting at Mar-a-Lago. President talking about Zelensky and how the meeting was good. They talked a lot of topics, and he thinks they're getting closer. But wait, there's more.
Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of the Italian Republic, Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom.
These are the European leaders who are joining in with the United States, even though Keir Starmer looks like he's on a very short leash these days.
Britain and Northern Ireland, Chancellor Friedrich Merz, the Federal Republic of Germany.
I always laugh when he says Fred Merz from Germany, because that was Lucy and Ricky's neighbor. And I Love Lucy, Fred Merz. I could just see him coming in and going, "Hiya, Trump, how you doing?" Is that wrong?
Secretary General Mark Rutte, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, President Ursula von der Leyen of the European Commission. We spoke to all of those great leaders. They're all great leaders. And we had a great talk with them after we were completed. We thought it was appropriate to speak with them. And our meeting was excellent. We covered, somebody would say 95%. I don't know what percent, but we have made a lot of progress.
Made a lot of progress, but no progress will really be made until Putin signs on. The president talked more about the talks and how close they are.
The U.S.-Ukraine security guarantees, what number are we at right now?
Well, I think look, you can say 95%, but I don't like to say percentages. I just think we're doing very well. We could be very close. There are one or two very thorny issues, very tough issues, but I think we're doing very well. We made a lot of progress today, but really we've made it over the last month. This is not a one-day process deal. This is very complicated stuff.
Yeah, you've had your people talking with Putin, talking with Zelensky as well, but that question about the one or two thorny issues got a follow-up.
In your mind, sir, what are the thorniest issues still unresolved after the?
Well, I think the land you're talking about. Some of that land has been taken. Some of that land is maybe up for grabs, but it may be taken over the next period of a number of months. And you're better off making a deal now. Look, let me tell you, they have been very brave. They fought very hard and continue to fight very hard and do tremendous damage. But Russia would like to see it end, and Ukraine would like to see it. And I think it's time to end. And a lot of very brave people, a lot of people that are dead right now, unfortunately, because I've said, and nobody's disputed it, that if the election weren't rigged and stolen, 2020, you wouldn't have had this war. It would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Never was even thought to happen.
President Trump doing a little bit of the weave, bringing in the reality check on everybody who said, Biden did everything he could to stop this war. No, it would not have happened if Donald Trump were president. I'm also happy that the president got the 4-year timeout because he came back in roaring. But there was more on what President Trump discussed with Zelensky. And one of the sticking points seems to be convincing the government of Ukraine, what government there can be, that they need to end this and cede some of the territory. So would that mean President Trump going to Ukraine?
I have no problem with doing it. We don't anticipate it. Would like to get the deal done and not necessarily have to go. I've offered to go and speak to their parliament. And, if that would help, I don't know if that would help. I think it would probably help, but I don't even know if that's...
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I know.
Always.
So I'm not sure that it would be really necessary, but if it would help save 25,000 lives a month or whatever it may be, I would certainly be willing to do that.
President Trump saying he doesn't want to go to a war-torn country, and I understand that. And I'm sure the people on the left are going to say, Biden went, why won't you go? And they'll make all kinds of crazy accusations. But the reality is, why should he have to go? Why should our president have to go to end this war? I do think we're getting closer to some kind of deal, but Putin is always going to be the wild card. He's the one who has to agree. You can have these two guys agreeing to the end of the day, but until you get Vladimir Putin in there, nothing will happen. Nothing at all. Very, very interesting. And like I said, we're keeping an eye on what's going on with the discussions with the Israeli leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, is in the White House as we speak, or going to be in Mar-a-Lago, not in the White House, the Southern White House. The phones have been absolutely crazy busy today. So I want to make sure we get as many in. We'll try and get to as many of you as possible. I do need to talk about a couple of other stories here that are bubbling out there, but, you are the people. 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Carlo is in Arlington, Virginia. Hello, Carlo.
Hey, my friend. Like I've said before, I listen to WMAL Talk Radio all day, and I learn mostly the stuff from Chris. He's great, and you're my favorite talk show host. I have to say that.
Thank you.
You need your own gig for sure. Anyways, some time ago, a video came out with Nancy Pelosi in the back of a limousine talking to her daughter, and
Yeah.
Of course we know that she turned down the National Guard. She said that she didn't realize the violence was going to be so bad on January 6th, and she said, I'm responsible for the violence on January 6th, and nobody brings that up. I actually put that video on my Facebook page when it first came out, and, nobody talks about that.
Yeah, the interesting and kind of bizarre thing is that Pelosi's daughter, who is a documentarian, was shooting video on the day of January 6th. Gee, why would you have crews with your mom and in her office and shooting that video in that SUV as Pelosi was being transported and basically admitting that she blew it? She did screw up, but we also have video of her saying that she wanted to punch Trump right in the face, which is on there too. So yeah, that's a good call, good remembering on that. The left side of the mainstream media won't be replaying that video because it actually contradicts what Pelosi was saying. But thank you, Carlo, and thank you for the kind words. Very nice of you. Let's go to Tom in Chicago. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Michael. You do a great job there. So you guys are talking about removing judges.
Yeah.
And I hope the Trump administration's listening to this. So there's a viable way to do this.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand when you're elected a judge or appointed to be a judge, you're not a judge. You're not a judge until you take the oath of office. And the oath of office requires you to protect the laws of these United States. So I can list for you at least 7 federal court cases where the judge relied on foreign laws to overturn U.S. laws. It's in the written decision. So that's a written confession that the judge has violated his oath of office. And if he has violated the oath and the oath makes you a judge, he's not a judge. And we have.
This is an excellent point, and I also will make a bit of a sidebar to this, that anyone who allows judges to make decisions based on foreign law is also opening the door to allowing judges and or local courts to make decisions based on Sharia, which we know has already embedded itself in some of the heavily Muslim communities in places like Dearborn, Michigan, and Irving, Texas, of all places. So it truly is a slippery slope. If you allow this to begin happening, it's almost no turning back. Somebody's got to put their foot down, and hopefully it'll be Donald Trump. It's an excellent point, Tom. Thank you. Appreciate you. Robert is calling from Oregon. Robert, I hope you're not in the area that's losing the last two Walmart stores near Portland. That's a shame to me. Walmart's closing its last two stores in Portland because they can't stay open. There's too much crime. It's crazy.
No, down here by Corvallis and Eugene, although that's not much better. Hey, look, these guys in Minnesota, I think you're a nice guy, Michael, but you don't think like a criminal enough.
Well, thank you.
I do. I think like a criminal a lot. They don't want to get rid of that money. They want the money to come in. It's coming from the federal government. We're paying for it, and the politicians and the people in Minnesota thrive on it. So the money that those guys get, the Somalis, they buy cars, they buy houses, they spend money. It makes their economy grow, and it's just redistribution of wealth. They don't want to catch these guys. They don't really care if they're running a legitimate business or not. It's the cash flow that's coming in. Whether they're getting kickbacks or not doesn't even matter. The fact that their economy is growing creates more taxes, creates a better-looking state, and it makes the politicians look good. So it's all a big circle.
Yes, circle
money.
fest. Circle fest is the term that Chris uses. In a hot tub. That was close.
You see what I mean?
I do.
They don't see the federal government as their life, as their part of their world. They see us as the evil ones. They're taking our money and they're redistributing it, just like in California, all those liberal states. They're taking the money from the hardworking people, which are the conservative people, and they're redistributing it for their own good, for their own needs and wants, and they could care less about what we do. So they don't want to catch these people. It's not even a question in their mind.
Well, you're absolutely right, and all they're banking on is like this stimulus. It's a stimulus to their local economy that costs them nothing, but they see it as money then allowing for purchases to be made for food and cars and homes and clothing, etc. As you point out, that props up their economy. I just would like to see what these economies would be like, whether it's Minnesota, or as we're calling it, Fraudistan, or Ohio or Maine or any of the places we're now seeing these pockets of Somali corruption. I'd like to see if they can stand on their own 2 feet. I'm kind of betting they won't be able to, and I would like Doge to come back full strength. Thank you for telling me I don't think like a criminal. I appreciate it, Robert. Let's get one more in here. Joe is in Annapolis. Hello, Joe. Welcome.
Hello. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, brother.
Happier New Year than this past. Okay, so with all the fraud in Minnesota, and there's going to be charges of allegations and complicity and whatnot, when does the word treason actually become on the table? Because if you're complicit in fraud, and you know that some of that money is going back to Somalia, and some of that money is going to fund terrorist groups, is that not actually aiding an enemy of the United States? And would that not be chargeable as treason?
Maybe. That's going to be a harder one to get a conviction on. I think if you can just push the fraud aspect of this and convict them on the stealing of the money, you're better off. You got an easier way, not easier, but you'll have a greater likelihood to get a conviction. Now, the FBI has brought up something else that I haven't really addressed today, and I'll do it before we get out of here. The FBI, in some cases, has discussed taking away the citizenship of these people, denaturalizing these folks, and then removing them from the country, kicking them out of the country. I don't know if that's feasible. We will talk about that. But it'd be much tougher to do treason. It might be true, but it'd be harder. But the criminal end of this, on the theft and the fraud, I think that's an easier path to choose. Not a walk, but an easier path. We'll dive into this. One more thought before we get out of here. Opelka in for Plant on Talk Radio, on the Chris Plant Show. It is Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show. I think Michael Piercy, who is a ninja, found that Nancy Pelosi clip that one of our callers was talking about.
Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with? They thought that they had sufficient resources. That is not a question of how they have. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
There you go. I take responsibility. Maybe ABC News should play that. Maybe. I'm just saying. Maybe that's a good idea. Journalism. Look into it. So many things that we didn't get to today, we will get to them tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow and Wednesday, as we count down to the end of the year, I'm going to be looking for your favorite moments of 2025 and maybe the one you wish didn't happen. So start collecting your favorite moments of 2025. We'll share them with you. I've got some of mine already lined up. Some of them are cringeworthy, some of them are laugh-worthy, and some of them you just say, I voted for that. I absolutely voted for that. Now, the issue I talked about briefly that we will need to get to, whether or not you can revoke the citizenship of a naturalized American citizen and then throw them out of the country, which someone has said the FBI is looking into revoking naturalized citizenship and then booting some of these criminals, Somalis, these fraudsters out of the country. It's really hard to do. The only way you can take away a naturalized citizen's citizenship is if you can prove that they got that citizenship illegally. So if they were here legally, if they were granted asylum, if they were said to be a refugee, and then they became a criminal when they got here, you can't throw them out. You throw them in prison for a long time, but only if they scammed, like maybe marrying their sister. We need to look into that. It's Mike Opelka. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Let's talk about the end of the year. Till next time, testudo, my friends. Testudo.